for launching the video. Yeah, good morning, everyone. Thanks for doing a quick intro in the chat here. Our today's topic is indoor analytics and data privacy. And we really want to go deep on what happens to all this data if you use indoor precision technology. And it has been more and more adopted over the years in various industries. We really want to know what you can do with this kind of data and what kind of technology has been used. And it can not only enable your, I just learned automatic guided vehicle, the AGV, to drive autonomously through your production facilities or help your co-workers to find materials faster, but it also produces a new set of data. And this location data is now available, and the question arises of what value can you extract from the new data source that is suddenly available to companies? And to explore that question, we will discuss industry use cases today that our experts brought along. We had a session before last week where we synced each other. So we brought really cool use cases today for you. And so you get a grasp and a glimpse into a foreseeable future, maybe even for your companies. But of course, there's also still quite a few challenges when it comes to analyzing indoor location data. One of the central topics here is the data privacy and what you can do and cannot do with the user data. And we for sure will also deep into that challenge and other challenges that arises using indoor technologies. And last but not least, we will discuss how you can get started so that your company can benefit from these new arising opportunities. And we will potentially also look into what are the hurdles introducing that technology. That's so much for us. I should have launched the slides, right, Philip? Let's see, some featured actions. I'm struggling to launch the video and the slides today, Philip. Maybe you can help me with the slides as well. Thank you so much. For the audience, we really inquire and wish for questions. So this is a panel. Feel free to ask any questions. Of course, we brought some questions along to kickstart the conversation, but please ask any question that you have in the chat and we will get to it. Sometimes the experts will just answer them in the chat, or sometimes we will pick them up in the conversation here in the panel. So please make use of the chat and ask anything you want. And there is an exclusive extra at the end of the session. We were going to share a nice white paper with you guys. So for today, we have 4 experts, and we decided that I quickly introduce them to you guys, and then we get the discussion rolling. But before we do so, let me introduce Ludger to you. He is a manager of scouting and co-innovation at Bosch Connected Industry. In his 15 years at Bosch, he has held various positions in manufacturing, logistics, and lean management. Today, he coordinates innovation projects for Industry 4.0 software. Teja is a partner and the VP of Smart Factory and Logistics at United AG. He started to work with location technology already about 15 years ago during his time with Lufthansa Systems and BMW. Michele is a freelance consultant and holds a PhD in computer science. His work is focused on retail analytics, mobility intelligence, and urban traffic optimization. Products he helped to build are being used by organizations such as Google X, CAI, and NASA. Last but not least, Jan is a serial entrepreneur and one of the founders of Formation. Previously, he already started a location technology company called Meshine. I hope this is right, Jan, that provided mesh technology to companies. So these are our expert panelists. I'm your moderator today, Danny Holtschke, freelance agile coach myself, and Philip, who was so kind helping me, is the host of the session, also one of the co-founders of Formation. Okay, I would say let's get right into. We have a few topics that we want to address after the welcome. The first big part is, where's the value in using these kind of technologies? And our first question goes to Ludger, and we would like to hear what are the best use cases for indoor analytics that you see today?
And hello everyone. So I come from Bosch. And generally, I think you can say it's a little bit like, from your private usage of navigation system, everything you look for a certain position or you look for a route, right? The same topics you have as well in industry. A lot of questions, a lot of things are moving. Everything that is moving is relevant to it. It's moving a lot of material through manufacturing logistics sites. It's moving people, it's moving tools, it's moving machines even in the future, a lot more. And we see huge potential in general for that. So coming a little bit closer to Bosch and what we are doing, let's say in the past 20 years or even more, there has been a huge automation of everything that is done in the manufacturing with the machines. Standing machines are there, and a huge potential we see in all these logistics areas. So you move the material into your warehouse, from the warehouse to the production, from production to the warehouse, and then to your customer, right? And that is a lot of movements. There's a lot of uncertainty of ways of controls, and yeah, we're dealing there with a clear positioning, with online positioning, not only with bookings like in the past. You book every 8 hours some material that is moving, or you want to move a material or two, and it must be moved from that position to this position and directly booked it. The best is automated, but once you notice in many plants, even in Bosch, we have it either fully automated or we still have it manual, and it takes a lot of effort, right? And there's huge automation potential. That is one of the really interesting areas for us for indoor positioning analytics.
Cool. Thank you so much. A question just popped in your mind. If you said like automation is like the domain right now, how many humans are there? Like from which percentage to which percentage did you decrease the human factor?
Is that meant right now in manufacturing or in logistics?
Yes. Yeah, manufacturing.
Well, it depends a lot, right? So the more standardized your products are, the higher the quantities are, the more you produce in high-cost locations, the higher is your automation degree. And in the past, or this is still the guiding rule, in the past it was always the more you automate, the less flexible you get. So you have really some issues. Then you have a lot of investment in high cost. There's a new challenge also popped up in saying, how could I automate more with low invest? And there's a lot of cool new solutions. There's a lot of startups coming up. There's a lot about this robotics topic where you can say there's human operations. Today we cannot do it any better than any human, but let's try still to do it and try to automate it in a different way, in a very flexible way, right? That is a huge challenge for the industry to make this step. We did already a lot of trials, but it's interesting, definitely for the next 10 years at least.
Yeah, thank you, Ludger. And Teja, how do you see value being added for companies? What kind of use cases have you seen or have you actively worked on in your past that you see being used today? If you are speaking, you might need to unmute yourself. Of course, I hope you're still there. If not, we can also start with Jan first, and then we have Teja next, because Jan, I would have addressed the question to you too. So how do these indoor technologies and analytics add value for companies from your perspective?
Yeah, I mean, now I would say I'm talking especially from a formation perspective, and here the adding value, or let's put it this way, our focus is very much the workers. So we created our platform and the interface, which is an app for the workers, and therefore we want to make the indoor analytics useful for the workers. And for this we use an interactive map. So basically the benefit then is it serves the fundamental question that humans have, whether they are at work or outside of work. It's like, where I am, where am I, and where is the rest, right? The other people, my colleagues or machines, and then the follow-up questions, what are the things that needs to be done, right? For example, my tasks. And so what we try is basically to have this interactive map as an interface that represents the workplace. and everything that is relevant for me as a worker in this workplace.
Thank you so much, Jan. Teja, are you there? Can you hear us?
Yeah. Now?
Yes,
Perfect.
yes. Perfect.
I have no clue what happened, but anyway, it's just a matter of some IT mysticals, maybe. Your question was more in. So what I have, what's my comment on what Ludger experienced at Bosch? So from my point of view, for looking at our clients, they mainly not asking directly for the setup. It's always that you first have to see what's the surrounding, because before you can set up some analytics indoor, you first have to see the processes indoor and trying to clean up the processes indoor. And if you're talking about the value of the automated vehicle guidance indoor, for example, which is a first step before you then get the information and do the analytics, then you have like 40% less movements or better movements indoor than before, because finding the right material at the right time, especially if you have bulk logistics or bulk storages in logistics, then you have much less time for finding those materials. This is like 40% differences. And now you're getting then up to analytics, then you have an additional effect on better movements of AGVs, for example, and you have another 20% of further improvement for, especially in this use case, for the indoor transport of those things. So therefore, I'm pretty sure that we can reduce waste by using indoor analytics as soon as you have the processes of, for instance, bulk storages being better controlled in that environment. And that's, from my point of view, like 10, 15 years ago, we started discussing the indoor navigation parts and trying to get some sensoric on the forklifters and trying to move them. Now we're talking about the AGVs moving automatically, and they do have the sensoric already implemented at this time. This is what we have seen through the years of this. But still, for most of our clients, it's still a hurdle to get automatic vehicles in their production. It's mainly seen at the big customers, like the big OEMs, for example, in automotive industry.
Mm-hmm. So like I had this question, like when Ludger and you were just talking, how much data are we actually extracting from those vehicles or at the manufacturing site? Like I know that the trend of big data, industry 4.0, but how much data are we actually extracting right now from your perspective? Is there a number we can put on this? As you said, there's now these vehicles already coming with the technology being installed, so this helps in collecting data, but how much are we actually collecting? And what's the room for potential here?
The room is immense, what we can do. From one side, just only setting up the AGVs and being able to collect that information does not mean that you use that information at that point. So I've seen very few automated or machine learning algorithms, even at the big OEMs, to increase the ways they are moving forward or the tactics, how they should move forwards. They are always on pretty clearly defined ways moving forward and backward, and this is not intelligence, it's just automated at that point over. So clearly differentiate between the clearly automated ways and the intelligent ways. And what Ludger says, okay, it's still a big learning field to make the AGVs or the logistics intelligence instead of automated. This is still something where most of the companies have a big, a big field of improvements they can really earn on.
Yeah. Thank you, Teja. Before we ask Michele how we can use machine learning to really further increase this data value, let's go back to Ludger. How much data are you guys actually collecting right now, and how are you using it?
Yeah, I don't want to speak about the amount of data in mega or something bytes. One point I would like to make is, so we are right now introducing the AGVs into many of the plants. We also have plants that, let's say, from ramp to ramp, from the intake to the outtake, all the goods that flow, they're automatically booked by RFID, for instance. We have some technologies like this, right? And what we see is important that for this intralogistics, you have always a bunch of various technologies right now that deliver the position. AGVs that speak with a laser map, you have Bluetooth, Wi-Fi, some have ultra wideband, so right? And you need to merge this together, right? So if you have, let's say, the one good, you need to deliver that goes to the AGV, for instance, that has a laser, and you need, well, system for the intralogistics to say, the other one, this I give to the forklift. There's a huge material, it's a huge pallet, I give it to the forklift. The forklift has a different technology, but still you need to merge it. And that is something that is happening, and we are doing this also in the industry consortium, and to merge this together, to really to say, okay, we want this, whatever kind of technology is currently there, we want to have this position and to give even the orders for the intralogistics. That is currently on its way. And I think this is more important right now than the, let's say, the amount of data that is done by the position.
Yeah, thank you, Ludger. Good morning, Michele. I'd love to address the next question to you. How can machine learning help to further increase this data value? So Ludger was explaining we need a standard that those different machines can like extract the same, or you can extract the same data from it. What else would you say we need?
Yeah, well, thanks a lot. It's a good question. Before even trying to improve business processes, how can we use machine learning? To produce more and better position data. That's true for most of the use cases. And how can you do that? Well, we can provide positioning by providing an estimate of the position starting from sensor measurements like Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, or RFID tags. And then you can also provide better positioning. For example, I give you here an example, a problem I had a couple of years ago. We were at that time trying to identify the position of people in malls. What was happening is that people were jumping between first floor and second floor suddenly. So in this case, also machine learning is helpful to understand what are the dependencies in time and space, to understand what is reasonably possible or not, as a way to clean position data to then obtain more accurate trajectories and location data in general. So these are two relevant ways you can use machine learning to improve your location data information.
I know that, for example, the self-driving vehicles that people in Silicon Valley work on and all of work rely on a lot of data, and machine learning relies on a lot of data. And you said we need more of this data. So would you say right now we haven't even collected enough data to really make use of the intelligence of machine learning?
I would say we have enough data, and now if you look at what's happening inside this autonomous vehicles, they're becoming increasingly complex and sophisticated machines that require huge computation resources just to operate. So like just driving on a regular road, it's like running several machine learning pipelines, lots of intelligence running there. So where actually you don't actually need more data. It's already enough. Making sense of what you already have with safety, it's what's tricky at the moment.
Michele, I do have a question.
Yeah, sure.
As you said, at least we should have enough data. What about the information on the processor processes. Like if you're talking about indoors logistics, how do you get the information where the material is, and where do you connect to the ERP in the best way to connect that information to the AGV, for example, because they need to move to different locations. Is there an optimization for in their logistics, which then should have effect on the ERP system or on the logistics system you have in there? Is there any possible connection between the machine learning to get better information in the ERP on one side and better information on the AGV movement?
I think that's so on one side the AGV needs to operate even if connectivity doesn't work properly. The AGV is still expected to operate correctly, at least not crashing into things or people, and that runs on the AGV, and it should be safe by itself. And then when it comes to how you integrate the data you generate from the AGV to other systems, this might depend on what is your use case. For example, if you have different touch points through the warehouse from A to B, you can monitor also, you can double check the movement, considering these touch points as gates. For example, making sure that the AGV passed a certain position, so at least you know that you are advancing in the business process.
Which we also have from Daniel, one of our attendees, to Ludger. What kind of standards do you see are relevant to combine different location technologies, VDA 5050, plus 51, Omlux, etc.?
Yeah, I can hand this over to our experts, so I know exactly these ones, the two VDA norms and the Omlux. Is it possible somehow to hand in some further information by the real experts of that? Right. So I think the VDA 5050 and 51, that is what we currently work with, and we also use it, right? Like we have a software that we use for transport and stock management that controls the various AGVs with their systems, and that is based on the VDA norm, I know. But to give you a better overview about all the standards that are there, I would have to address that.
Yeah, that's totally fine, Ludger. That's maybe a good cliffhanger to our following discussion on LinkedIn, where you're all invited to join us in the LinkedIn group. We for sure will take this question, Daniel, and then Ludger will make an effort to ask the experts and comment there. So your answer will be, or your question will be answered in the LinkedIn group. Please feel free to sign up there. You can also there connect with the experts, ask further questions, direct message them, just as a little information as a further ongoing of this discussion that we are having today. I saw Jan being highlighted in the as a video. Jan, do you have a comment?
I do have a question. I have a question for Teja, because what I got from him, what was interesting is kind of like the efficiency gains, and even on the environmental side. And I was wondering whether Unity has some numbers to that. So whether you have a feeling to quantify that.
You mean the quantification if what the efficiency gains
the efficiency gains, and then maybe also on the resource sustainability, or using less resources.
There have been some from the German Bundesregierung, at least 10 years ago already, that was material efficiency programs which have been started at that time. There was 20 to 25% overall efficiencies, which have been the goal on all these efficiency programs, at least. This is something you have to reach, otherwise you won't get any compensations from the state. at that point. And from our experience, if you're talking about material efficiencies and less waste, is 20% at least a number where you can calculate.
And the indoor positioning like was a key component to achieve this?
Indoor positioning then was more an efficiency part, not the material efficiency, but a process efficiency part. And for the indoor positioning and setting up processes at that point, as I said before, it's like 40%. You can reach or you can reduce movements and finding times within that. And we had a use case at a big airport in Germany in, I think, 1.5 years ago, well, before crisis, obviously, where we have findings of tooling and that environment. And that use case has about 56% efficiency.
Wow, okay. And but that was mostly in relation to objects, I assume.
That was in relation to objects. Yeah, we haven't discussed yet the location of people yet. In Germany, it might be a little bit more complicated than in other countries. In China, we do see that location of people is much less complicated in terms of regulations within the factory, as we do have that in Western European states because of personality rights and all the discussion we have in that environment. But in general, we can start a discussion how to set positioning for people in there, but that's beside the logistics and the material side, much more emotional discussion probably.
And this brings us to the data privacy. You could almost ask Jan, can you record the position of people and employees at all?
I cannot. Yeah, but that gives a lot of interesting use cases in that, because in the moment you're able to locate people, we're spreading out from the material then to also service industries, and we talking about office effectivity, not only about the lean management and the lean administration, but also office efficiency is based on this. So Jan, is that possible at all?
Well, it is possible, and that's pretty much in the field we are. But then, of course, we are in the European Union and we are in Germany, so it's a very delicate topic, and we are quite aware of that. And I'm not a lawyer, to put that up front here. But I mean, like, legally, the model is basically the employee has a contract with his or her employer, and in there should be the clauses, or there has to be the clause in now that data can be gathered from the employee, right? And then basically we, for example, as Formation, as a third party contractor, are being a service provider to the company then. So that's kind of like on the legal setup. Now the stake that we have with Formation is we are very much on the worker side. So how do we do that? That means generally we have a mechanism in place called privacy by design, and so that means per default nobody's sharing locations, and you are very aware whether you share location or not, and you've been like kind of like actively asked to do so. And then again, there's the one question whether you can identify who that person is, and on our side we don't want to know that. So actually that is information that who exactly this is we want to be as far as possible away from that, because that's not so much of our interest, but the classification into groups and then the metadata of, for example, people moving in space is already like very, very interesting information to create pathways, to create heat maps, to create time series. So yeah, it is possible. It's not easy, and it's a very emotional topic, as Teja said. So yeah.
Ludger, what have you done experiments where people were okay with being tracked in, like, for research purposes? Have you, what encounters have you done with tracking people and this whole topic of data privacy?
Yeah, I mean, Bosch is present around the world. So we have different legislations, and people in some regions of Asia, for instance, they just do it. They just build their solutions. I think the guiding concern, I think it's important to have the Workers' Council and these discussions. And if you come, let's say, for certain applications, to say you are able to improve the worker security because the AGVs that run around with milk run trains, it's a lot of traffic there. So if you have a clear implication for your solution that you have, you use this positioning even of the people to improve safety, to give more information to the people, and you can ensure by the software that you have, for instance, by the output, by the heat map that you have, that it serves clear process, and it's not able to access the personal data of this person to make a, let's say, the kind of, we see this from some logistics providers, this kind of really very personal performance trackings. I think they're open for that. You can go into these discussions, but yeah, and they build up some expertise as well in the workers' councils in the past years in that, and yeah, that's how I would say it. So as Jan said it, you can do it even in Europe, but serve the process and the functionality and avoid these personal trackings, and then that's the way to go.
I think also with the thinking wise, you have to, I mean, we strongly believe that if the worker do not love and the application that you use, that you provide, and it doesn't make their life easier, their work life easier, it won't work anyway. So therefore, and therefore you have to, number one is you have to be very clear and make everyone very aware of where am I sharing my positioning data right now, and how is that happening? Number one. Number two is if I realize, hey, actually it makes my work more safe, it makes my work more easy, it takes less time out of a sudden, then of course there's a benefit to the worker, and I think that then you're on the right track, and then the worker is willing to share their positioning data, for example.
Yeah, it reminds me of a quote I encountered when the first Corona. The first Corona wave came, and everyone was concerned about the Corona Warn app here in Germany, right? And this quote was, "People are only concerned about data privacy who are healthy, right? Sick people would always sign up because the benefit for them is to stay alive. They want to be informed if they had a contact with a risky person. So the value is so huge using a tracking app for your own health safety that I just got reminded of that quote. Thanks, Jan. Michele, regarding the EU, what location data are we allowed to collect and how?
Yeah, so in EU, you have to, of course, to refer to GDPR, which applies to personal data. And what is personal data? This is a very broad definition, but in general, I will just give some examples. For example, your IP address, it's a personal data. Cookies in your browser are personal data. Or also the ID of your the email address of your mobile device is personal data. RFID IDs, tag IDs are personal data. So anything that can be used to identify an individual is personal data. For example, if you work in a particular way, and I take a video of everyone walking around, I can try to see if you are in the video as well, just looking at how people are walking there, which is also personal data. So you have to be very conscious on how you are processing any kind of data which might relate to personal data. And what is also interesting is that data which might not be personal for you, for example, position of a tool in a warehouse, could become personal for another company. If I know that that the person is using that tool today, and I am able to track that tool, it means that I'm also able to track that person. So yeah, it depends, and it's a complex topic, and yeah, different interpretations. In general, it's good if you have a declared purpose for which you want to use the data. You minimize the systems and the time that you have that have access to the data, and you try to aggregate as early as possible the data, so that, for example, you just count how many people are in a certain room, and you don't really need to have identifiers for people in that room, if your goal is to just have a number of people in that room.
Yes, thank you, Michele. And we have a great comment from Gilles, who says the key argument for getting people to share their location is focusing on the value add, as we discussed before, right? So you have to be clear on what is shared and why it is useful. It's less about your boss watching you and being able to say, oh, you had a 5-minute break that was too long, or you had another smoking break, or you whatever could be the big brother watching you argument. So it's not this, but the value of better systems, more safety, as Teja also said.
Yeah, this is a very strong principle, because it goes in the right direction, business-wise, but also privacy-wise. So it's a good marriage.
Yeah.
And for example, giving an example on AGVs, I can share my location with the system if I know that in the same area of the warehouse there's an AGV operating. If there is no AGV, there's no need for me to share my position to ensure safety, to avoid collisions with AGVs that are not there at the moment. Yeah, so you can also stop transmitting my location in that case.
Yes, thank you, Michele. And Mike asked to Jan, is the worker able to clearly see when and to whom he is sharing his data?
I think that I mean, I can for our application here, but in our case, it is the case. That's one key component of the data privacy by design, right? So that means you know, actually you choose or you make the decision: do I want to share the data? Am I positioning data, and to whom do I want to share it, right? And that's again then brings the point that Gilles made quite well here is what is the benefit, right? So if I want to mark a meeting point in the factory at my colleague somewhere, then of course I want to share my positioning data with my colleague, because I want to meet that person in X amount of time, right? And to also draw this distinction with who do I share my positioning data? Is it maybe useful to have a broadcasting, or a whole other scenario? Is there a safety issue, right? Then out of a sudden it might make sense to automate and say, like, now there's an emergency button and now it's shared with everyone because it's an exceptional case.
Yeah. Thank you, Jan. Just to play devil's advocate, and I want to take the worker's position, because I can see many bosses being interested in this data being shared with them so they can really analyze the workforce. But Jan, what do you see I know that a lot of startups are using designed by privacy or patent pending to enrich their app, to enrich their technology. But how do you really ensure you have the workers' interest of data security in mind, plus showing the huge value behind it?
Well, I think if you just use it for marketing, shorter or longer, at some point it falls on your feet, right? So that means in our case, for example, we embedded into our work ethic, into our company values, that actually we create this application predominantly in the first place for the worker. Of course, it should also have benefits to the corporate, but we say categorically we don't have dashboards where the companies can spy or check productivity of workers, right? And then other steps, as mentioned by Ludger, actually, it's like you should include the workers' unions. You should include the the shop floor Betriebsrat, right? I'm not sure what the term is in English. But that's the conversations that you need to have, right? So there is no point of creating an application that is pushed into a company top down by the management, and even if you then say like, yeah, we protect all your privacy, eventually it will come out, and if the workers don't love the application, they simply won't use it, and then there's no point of implementing it. The Workers' Council. Thank you, Danny.
Yes. Yeah. Thanks, Jan. And another great point by one of the listeners or guests, great functionality for end users and protected data privacy do not need to be mutually exclusive ideas. Both is possible. The key idea is that the data is treated and how long it's stored, how transparent that all is for the owner of the data. So that's another great comment. Thank you for that. I would suggest we move on to the last and final theme. How can you benefit? How can your company benefit from indoor analytics tools? And the first question goes to Teja. What are the best ways to get started?
Common question from our clients. As we do have that question quite often, we said, okay, let's put that in a simple way, and we set up the so-called 3+1 rule for this. And 3+1 rule is, as the name says, consisting of 3 components for the use case, which we're talking, because that's what you need a use case to make it happen. You need to be aware what's going to go in there, and how to set up, how to achieve, on what to achieve in that environment. So 3+1 rule says, well, okay, first of all, you need some sort of technology, which is the technical possibility that certain function within the process or the process model will work. For example, one technology is some sort of near-field communications, for example, in that environment. The second thing is you need some sort of application service. Means specific and focused use of the technology, specific usage. For example, predictive maintenance. This would be in an application, for example, and the process model is existing, and you have several functions within with that technology and usage. And third thing from the 3+1 rule is then the benefit. You must be clear what type of benefits should I reach? What's my goal of the benefits, and that's what we're talking about first of that. And the +1 is the most important one. The +1 is the customer. As long as you are implementing technologies in your application and trying to reach your benefits in there, so what's the customer have on this? Most companies are dealing with some sort of customers, at least to earn money. They need to have the customer always in the middle of their action. So therefore, it's the 3+1. What does the customer have from those? And is he willing to pay for it in addition? If you have additional cost, for example, investment cost for the technologies, what would be the benefit from that service? Is the customer willing to pay for that, or is that additional technology over the time being a cost reduction in your process environment? So therefore, we're saying it's a 3+1 rule. We're always trying to set up for this specific use case and see if it's going to work or not. So this is where you easily can start on.
Thank you, Teja. And Michele, I'd like to ask you as well, considering the benefit for companies and from your perspective as an outsider who looks at companies, what are the best ways from your perspective to get started? Also referring back to privacy by design and great functionality for end users and protected data privacy. do not need to be mutually exclusive ideas. So how do you convey the benefit of collecting data and using these technologies? How would you get started?
Yeah, so maybe let's start from where I would not get started. I would not postpone what we have to do, just in the short term trying to acquire as much data as possible, and then we think later what to do with it. So we should do the opposite. First, we understand why we want that data, which are the use cases for that data, why we need that. And first, we make sure that the user experience in how the user is experiencing the results of the analysis or the processing of the data. We need to make sure that the use case is clear and makes sense, the UX is clear. And once that is done, so there's a clear purpose, clear requirements on what kind of data we need, for how much, which are the properties of the data we need, and so on. So all the requirements, and that once we have this, we know what kind of data we need to ask people. Yeah, so in this way, you make sure that you are asking only for the data you need with a clear purpose.
Thank you so much, Michele. And our next question goes to Jan and then Ludger. What pitfalls or challenges do you commonly see in getting started?
Well, I mean, we talk now about indoor positioning, but in a lot of industry cases, it's often not just indoors, but it's often a mix. So it's indoor, outdoor, especially if you're talking about big company premises. And there we see a lot of challenges arising through this. So how do you make this transition of indoor outdoor positioning work? And then on the indoor positioning side, I mean, a lot of technologies are out there. From our experience, there is still no silver bullet. So there is not the one positioning technology that creates the best solution and always works. It depends on the circumstances. It depends on the company setup. Is there an infrastructure? It depends on how accurate should it be, right? So highly accurate is possible, but it's also more expensive. So if you see it on a scale, right, the more accurate you want to have it, the more expensive it gets. The more energy consumption is involved, like battery consumptions in beacons or in sensors. So a big challenge, or like the pitfalls that we see, is choosing the wrong technology for the use case, right? Or for the use case, choosing the wrong technology. That's often pitfalls that we see.
Thank you so much, Jan. Ludger, what have you observed being the pitfalls in getting started within Bosch, maybe at your colleagues? How do you want to warn others who are thinking of getting started, and what should they look out for?
Yeah, I totally agree to that, what my two fellows said before. Everything that concerns the use case, the clear benefit, return of invest. You know, we are B2B business we're speaking about. There's not any fancy app we're talking that doesn't cost anything. So really, we want to improve processes, and it must be a clear benefit. And we, particularly in Germany, we love technology and play around with it, you know, and then it's there, the technology, you have to see that, and oh, what do you need it for? This is playing around, you know, and that's, so as that said before, this is just repeating. This should be definitely guiding, and to do it technology open, I would definitely say that. And then another point I would like to add is that I think we many times forget the customer and everything that we're doing in the business that people are doing. The customer, we are delivering certain product services to customers to think for that, right? And for instance, if I go to the supermarket, I always think, you know, why am I queuing up at the cashier? Why am I not just picking the goods and just walking out? You know, I don't want to be completely tracked. I don't want this, but it's not necessary, you know? So, and in that, if you really keep the customer thinking for all these operations, there's a clear customer as well with his wishes to understand that, and then, you know, search for certain trial out areas and just do it as well. We also have to do that, you know? Right.
Yeah. Thank you. This brings me back to the 3+1 rule of Teja. Do you have any pitfalls that you often recommend to not do or to look out for when you speak to your customers?
Yeah, first of all, Ludger, I absolutely agree. But too often our clients are not thinking about the customer and the customer benefits when we're looking at this. This is one of the...
And Teja, just to be clear, the customer here is really the end customer, right? It's not the customer or the stakeholder in the plant and the manufacturing site who is using the app. That's not the customer.
Absolutely, as I said before, if you have an additional service, you have to think about what and who is going to pay for this in addition. And if we are talking about company-wise, and you might have budgets in your company, okay, and might have internal customers, yes, but at the end of the day, the company is existing, and by having external customers paying for services or goods. So therefore, if you're introducing new services, new technologies, you might have to think about what's the benefit out of it. Sometimes it's cost reduction on one side. On the other side, it's an additional benefit for a customer. And additional benefit for a customer, I think we talked about that at least 3 times already in this hour. The additional benefit for a customer is the strongest argument for implementing additional technologies. In that, even if we're Germans are normally love to play around with these technologies. So coming back to the first question, the pitfalls in there. As I said, the 3+1 rule is one thing where you can easily guide yourself versus these pitfalls. On the other side, if we're talking about technologies, sometimes technology providers are very happy if you're able to set up, say, okay, we'd only look at this one technology. If you're a big company, you should set up some trials on different technologies, because technology is normally part of the chain within your value chain. And this one technology in that value chain, you need to try out and set up some lighthouse with that technology, see if this is working, and see if this, what has been well expected from that technology is really existing in the reality, and how this is realizing your benefits in a day-to-day work. And once you see that lighthouse and look at the lighthouse and it's working like this, then you are able to broaden that to different other areas or processes and work it out. So one of the pitfalls from my point of view is not to put all on one card, all on one technology, but try out, do a lighthouse with that technology, and then see how you can broaden this to more and more processes.
Yeah, and instead of thinking the whole plant needs to be now intelligently connected, maybe you choose parts of it, or you choose out of your many parts.
Exactly. If you do it all at once, the probability of failure is much higher than trying it out in a secure environment and a controlled environment, and learn from it, and then turn it out to be able to do that on a complete plant.
Thank you. Maybe before I go to the last step, I see that Jan might
want to just echo what Teja said. Like I mean, we often see that that companies have their pet technology, and then that's what they are going for anyway. And for example, with Formation, that we made a conscious choice to not develop our own technology or another technology, but put it as a layer on top and have different technology providers, as in positioning technology providers, so that you are more flexible and that you can look what is actually the use case, what is the best benefit to the customer, and therefore then suggest in this technology.
Thank you, Jan. Thank you for the clarification. Let's jump to the second last slide. This is what we announced in the beginning, that if you stick around, we have a little gift for you at the end, and that's the white paper and early access, the 7 misconceptions of mapping. And I just share the link right now. You can download the white paper. It's a Google Drive link, so if you click on it, you should quickly see it in a new browser tab being opened. If it doesn't work, please let us know here in the chat. We will also share the link, I assume, in the LinkedIn group. Perfect. Yeah, just keep downloading if you are interested in the white paper, 7 misconceptions of mapping. Jan, from a formation standpoint, do you want to add 1 or 2 words to that white paper?
Who is the main author, and I think we're trying to create knowledge around what we do, and in this kind of like realm, you can see this white paper, and we are very happy and open for feedback now.
Thank you so much, Jan. I think this is for us to say thanks for joining. On this note, I would love to invite you to continue the discussion on LinkedIn. Any closing thoughts from the guests? Any thank you, any kudos? Thank you from my perspective, also for the guests for sticking around. It's almost an hour now. Yes, join the LinkedIn group if you haven't done before. We will continue the discussion there. We will make sure that Daniel's question will be answered there. So Ludger, you have a little homework, but that might be kickstarting the conversation there. Thank you so much all for joining. Jan, Philip, maybe one of the panelists, the last words are yours.
So thanks a lot. Actually, I also learned a bit, so it was great. And yeah, looking forward to keep in touch and interact on LinkedIn. Thank you.
Thank you, Michele.
A lot from my side for everyone joining. We just posted some additional reading materials that were shared by Ludger, for instance, in the LinkedIn group. So whoever is interested in the topic and wants to dig a little deeper, join the LinkedIn group, and then you can find some materials there, and we'll of course copy-paste the questions there now as well, and feel free to ask more and get in touch with our experts here. So yeah, thanks from my side.
Thank you, Philip. Teja and Ludger, any closing words?
For the participants here, and as well for the invitation to the formation team, and I look forward for some really good, cool things we're doing together in the areas with formation, and yeah, all the best for your indoor analytics next step.
Thank you, Ludger. Last but not least, Teja.
Yes, it always takes off, obviously, a second to set up the technologies. Anyway, as the technologies always takes a second, some last words. Technology-wise, it's important to move forward, and I really appreciate the formation initiative to talk about these technologies, to see what's happening, to see what's possible with positioning technologies, and how to learn from this. I really like the discussion with my colleagues here. That's a really cool thing, and you're doing a great job. Thank you.
Thank you all. Thank you for the closing words. We are 2 minutes over. I'm sorry. I wish everyone a good lunch break. Whatever you are having, enjoy the lunch. Thank you for joining today. And we might gonna continue further discussions in the future. This was our second formation talks. I'm not sure if the third one is planned, Philip, but maybe. But you will definitely be informed on LinkedIn. Thank you so much. Stay healthy. Yeah, and happy Christmas time.
Thank you, everyone.